The world has been riveted for hours now with the events in France. The killers of cartoonists at a Paris magazine holed up in a small town, holding hostages and telling anyone who would listen that they were willing to be martyrs. And undoubtedly, they were willing to take whomever got in their way. The art of hostage negotiation and the dilemmas faced by law enforcement officials. That and a whole lot more right here, right now. Welcome to MidPoint, the former Deputy Commissioner of Police in Nassau County, New York, president of the AFI Group, LLC, and most important, a former hostage negotiator. Bill Flanagan joins us today. Bill, thank you so much for being here.
Good afternoon.
Bill, from what we know, from what happened at this industrial park in France, it seems as if the police were prepared, a coordinated effort. We're now being told that the suspects came out shooting at the police. Give us an idea, though, and let's back up a little bit. They knew these guys were in the building. They knew that they had at least one hostage. What is your perspective on what they were facing and trying to do in those hours?
You know, this was obviously an untenable situation. These were people that were on the run for the last few days. They took these hostages more out of desperation than anything. And it's very clear that the French authorities did not want to engage in a protracted situation here. There was almost an inevitableness about the move to a tactical resolution to this. Obviously, they were set up to undergo and engage in negotiations. How long, if at all, those negotiations took place, and news reports are obviously saying that at least on one of these two venues, there were some negotiations. Why the tactical resolution was precipitated, I'm sure we'll find out over the upcoming hours and days. Was it precipitated by some actions that the hostage takers took? Was there some overt physical threat to the hostages? Or frankly, was it just that these terrorists had clearly expressed to whoever from the government or law enforcement was in touch with them that they were about to act in a manner that would be injurious to the hostages?
Bill, from what we know, and again, we're all just kind of putting things into perspective here a little bit, but let's get down to the negotiations. You have these two individuals, they're dangerous, they're armed, they have already slaughtered 12 people. They seem to be professional at what they do. They are apparently in some sort of a building holding hostages, at least one. Police get involved here. Bill, were the authorities there really looking forward to negotiate and get these guys out, or did they go in saying, these guys want to be martyrs, don't worry about helping them, because if you get a shot, take it?
Well, Eric, obviously the prime concern here is the life of the hostage. That's paramount. That being said, this is a nation being held hostage, realistically. This really goes beyond the local issue there of these folks in place with hostages. No law enforcement agency, no government wants to put innocent people in between the terrorists and the responding law enforcement or military people. You use negotiation to come to some end that you believe is going to be beneficial for yourself. And obviously the governmental end here is to not go down the path where you're going to encourage more of this kind of behavior. The tactical ending of this was really almost written early in the script.
Let's get to that tactical ending, and I agree with you completely. You're absolutely right. You don't want to put the hostages in any sort of a difficult situation. But are these really negotiations, or are these really with the very first thought to make sure that you put them in a position, you get them close to a window, get them close to a door, get the sniper with the long scope in action, have them ready, and just get them to where you can take the shot and take them out?
Look, that potential always exists in these kind of situations, especially in a situation like this. These are not garden variety criminals. These are people with a worldwide political agenda. They knew what the outcome was going to be from the time they invaded the newspaper 2 days ago. They may have fled, but they ultimately knew that the resolution to this was going to be somewhere down this line.
And would the ultimate resolution, again, I guess in the minds of the law enforcement there is, guys, we're starting a negotiation here, but in the end, we're going to kill these guys?
I wouldn't go down that path, Eric. In the United States law enforcement, that's never the intent here. Look, we want everyone to come out alive. And frankly, had they been able to come to some nonviolent conclusion to this, these people would have been taken out and, brought before the bar of justice in France. They made the decisions that precipitated the actions that you saw here, the tactical resolution, not the government, not the law enforcement. It was the accountability for what happened there lies squarely on the shoulders of those terrorists.
Bill, we've heard a lot about these individuals here, and the first words that we heard after we saw a lot of the video at what happened in the street was they were professional, they were well-trained, they seemed to know exactly what they were doing and where they were going. However, one of the individuals left a driver's license or an identification in the car. Apparently, something went wrong with their getaway plans here because they had to carjack at a gas station, and then they wind up in a printing plant. But looking at everything here, from what you've been able to see, do you get the perception as a professional in law enforcement that these guys were professional, well-trained, and that they were better than the average terrorist, let's say?
Eric, they had some level of proficiency. The professionals ended this today. The French law enforcement and governmental entities that went in there and saved more lives than were lost are the professionals. These people, they had some proficiency in weapons handling. Obviously, their logistics end is severely lacking. That's if, in fact, that they ever had any real plan to escape, to melt back into the community, to come back and wreak havoc again on the French populace. Again, we'll see in the days to come how extensive this network is. The intelligence apparatus of the French government and the French police are going to clearly be working to roll the rest of this group up.
Bill, I'm going to now shift this a little bit, and I'm going to go to your experience as a cop, former deputy commissioner of police in Nassau County, New York, a wonderful police department. I lived there for many years. Good bunch of people there, men and women. With regard to now taking everything into account and having people ready here in America, law enforcement. There is a thinking, former Mayor Rudy Giuliani said this recently, that now you need to go into the mosques. You need to go into the places where these people could be. You need to investigate. You need to spend more time there. If you were then in charge, would you do the same thing? Would you be going into the centers of Islamic community? Would you be spending more time surveilling the mosques? Or is there a better way to do it?
Look, the best way to do this is to develop relationships with the people in those communities within the United States. Law enforcement in the United States follows criminality wherever it goes. If the criminal is moving into a mosque and associating with the mosque, obviously law enforcement belongs following that criminal. But the people that can make the biggest difference here in the United States are the people that these terrorists and sympathizers would move among. And the best way to do that is the way that the New York City Police Department and other police departments, Nassau County, has moved in the past in this, and that is to establish deep relationships with those communities. That being said, there are certain venues within the United States that have become problematic in the fostering of radical ideas that are counter to the freedoms that all Americans hold near and dear to our hearts, and we should pursue those criminals down those paths.
And if the criminals do take us into places, because there's people worried that now you're going to demonize innocent people, you're going to break up what is basically, in many ways, a religious proceeding, but if you have to follow the criminals there, isn't that where you have to go regardless of what happens? You must do this.
Absolutely. I mean, look. The way to deal with terrorist networks is really to do a few things. You need to detect them, you need to deter them, and then you need to disrupt them. So obviously, the detection piece starts in the communities that they may be moving in. And there are relatively robust programs in place throughout the United States to engage those communities with law enforcement and other entities of government to come to that end.
Bill, a couple minutes that we have left here. Things are changing. It's a tough time for cops here in America right now with so much that is happening. So many people don't trust them. But now we have global terrorism that has struck a country that every expert we talk to says flat out, we know is here in America. We know is getting ready to take some sort of action against the citizens here. With regard then to law enforcement and the community, are we reaching a time where people are going to have to understand that some civil liberties are going to be damaged in order to keep people safe, that the cops need to go a little deeper, that law enforcement needs to go a little bit farther than what they normally would, and that's the only way to keep us safe, as horrendous as that sounds?
I firmly believe that law enforcement can work within the confines of what all of us as American citizens respect as everyone's base inalienable rights. We've done that successfully, and we do that. The support for law enforcement in the United States is very broad. When people see the things that have happened in France, it harkens us back to what happened on 9/11. We've learned from the failures, both in the information sharing and the intelligence communities that brought us to 9/11. Sometimes we need these lessons to remind us that the threat is still out there, that we need to be vigilant. And frankly, I believe that we have the resources to deal within the parameters of our Constitution and the constitutionally protected rights that people have within the frame of law enforcement in the United States. I'm very confident that we can do that without infringing on people's rights.
One can only hope that you are exactly right. Bill Flanagan, absolute pleasure having you on the show. We're going to be talking about this for many, many months to come. I'll look forward to the next time we talk. Thank you again.
Thank you, Eric.
All right, we want to bring everybody up to speed on what's happening overseas. Paris police are reportedly searching for another Islamist gunman who took part in the hostage-taking at the kosher deli. The gunman who apparently took the actual actions at the magazine, those two are dead. One gunman's dead at the kosher deli, and at least 3 hostages may be dead. Coverage of this story and more continues right here on MidPoint.